What the flux? Does this crazy air system work? Well, we should find out. If you've been following us on YouTube, you know that we did a review on the Antec DF800 FLUX, and you can find that right here. But many of you haven't been following us, and you should be ashamed. Okay, just kidding. But if you do like this fun and entertaining content, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Also, stay tuned all the way to the end to see how you can help me with a little feedback and maybe win a little cash in the process. Well, Antec is back at it again with a new mid-tower case for their FLUX system, the DF800 FLUX. Original naming, we know, and we kind of like it. Much better than some of the monitor manufacturers how you just basically tape your face to a keyboard and just go blah, 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 blah. Oh, it's the M27Q FV43U. Anyway, jumping in from the DF800 FLUX to the DF800 FLUX is a welcome change. You know what I mean. Now, before we get too far, I want to give a shout out to Aorus and Gigabyte, who provided a lot of the parts for this build, and we're in fact giving those parts away to one lucky user along with some other cool swag. So the AIO, PSU, and motherboard can be yours. Just check the link in the description below on how to walk away with that Aorus upgrade pack or one of 3 Aorus swag packs. Enough about the naming scheme. What is the DF800 and what the flux does flux mean? That joke's never gonna get old. Flux stands for flow luxury, and I like that already. And it's basically 5 strategically placed 120mm fans around the case. At its core, it's designed to enhance the GPU cooling performance by using the 5 fans in various strategic locations to not only intake air, but also provide the GPU with direct airflow, like its own little fanboy named Timmy. Timmy, the GPU fanboy. They provide this cool backwards fan for the system and also provide all of the other fans to make this Flux system work out of the box. But you can replace them all with your own choice of your favorite RGB fan if you wish, like we did in our build, because we're crazy like that. All right, now that you understand what the Flux is all about, let's take a tour of the rest of the case. A guided tour with mystery, romance, and drama. Okay, maybe just a guided tour, but you gotta admit you were a little bit more interested now. For starters, this case comes in one color, and that's black, and it retails for $119.99. Not bad for the price, and we have links down in the description below for picking it up should you like it, along with all of the other parts we used in our black and gold, it's blue and gold build. Now the case stands at just over 19 inches tall or 488mm, just under 19 inches deep or 479mm, and it's about 8.5 inches wide or 220mm for our non-US part of the community, and weighs about 17 pounds out of the box. Now that puts the case in between the 400D airflow and the 500D airflow from a weight and size standpoint, but don't mention that to 500D, it's a little testy about its weight. Now the case is made from a typical steel and plastic and comes with 3 large removable magnetic but super thin dust filters, with one on top, one on the bottom, and one on the back side. Dust filter on your backside. It's weird how that said that. Now your front I/O panel on this case comes with 2 USB 3 Type A ports, an HD mic and HD audio port, 1 LED control button that controls the ARGB hub in the back, and 1 power button. The front panel is a little bit perplexing here, as the DF800 front panel was all mesh. The DF800 front panel seems to have taken a step back, as it's half mesh and half tempered glass / steel. But after the build, we will see how this affects airflow by showing some numbers. Plus, you got your mystery now. See, I told you. Now before we get into what you can put inside of the case, let's take a look at the backside panel and see underneath. Taking the side panel off, we notice, as we mentioned above, the ARGB / fan hub. This supports up to 6 ARGB fans. It also has 6 3-pin fan connectors for powering those fans, and the hub plugs in with a 4-pin PWM fan connector into the motherboard. Now it's a nice little feature that Antec has included here, and we'd like to see more cases do this in the future. The downfall though is that out of the box, there's little to no cable management for the fans that are included and plugged into the hub. In fact, you can watch a whole section of my build video where I literally re-cable manage this whole section. Maybe they thought that whoever buys this case, like me, is gonna do their own cable management, but to leave the cables loose out there, I'm sure will trigger some of us OCD cable management folks. Also, I'm curious what the cost savings is for doing like a 3-pin fan hub versus an all 4-pin fan hub, because it's weird that should you choose not to use the enclosed fans that come with the case, you can't really use this fan hub at all, as most quality fans are 4-pin PWM. I guess maybe you can remove it and use it as a potential throwing star against potential intruders, but outside of that, it's not really all that useful. Let's go ahead and head to the innards of the case and what goes into it. For your motherboard, you could put mini ITX, micro ATX, and ATX inside of it. So really any board that isn't an eATX board will fit inside of this with ease. You got that Asus ROG Strix Z690-F gaming? Not a problem. That Aorus Z690 Elite AX? No problem whatsoever. The Asus ROG Strix Z690i Mini ITX board? No problem. A human head? Yeah, that's a problem. That won't work and has me questioning the people watching these reviews. Let's talk about GPUs then. This is where it gets a little bit tricky. The Flux system is designed to have 3 fans in the front set to intake, 2 fans in the bottom on the PSU shroud set to intake, and 1 fan in the rear to set to exhaust. The fans in the bottom could be a problem for your GPU selection, and it will limit what you can choose, though you can choose a lot. The specs call for any GPU up to 405mm in length, and you have to be mindful of the thickness of the card. GPUs like that Gigabyte Aorus RTX 3080 Ti Master will fit, as will the super beefy EVGA RTX 3090 Ti for the Win 3. Looks like using normal fans for the Flux or the included backwards fans should be absolutely fine, but just know it's going to be pretty close. We found that cards like the EVGA RTX 3080 Ti will fit nicely in here, along with like your Founders Edition 3080s, and even cards like the Gigabyte Radeon RX 6900 XT will fit in here without any air starvation issues. Unlike that seen in Galaxy Quest, you do not want to do that GPU. Don't be a monster. For storage, on the backside panel, you have room for up to 3 2.5-inch SSDs, which have mountable spaces, along with a tray underneath the PSU shroud that can house 2 3.5-inch HDDs or 2 2.5-inch SSDs. Sound off in the comments below if you actually consider storage when purchasing a new case. It appears to be a dying breed. For fans and radiators, you have some options here. In the front, you have the option of 3 120mm or 3 140mm fans, or up to a 360mm AIO or radiator. On the top, you have the option of 2 140mm or 3 120mm fans, or up to a 360mm AIO or radiator. On the bottom, you could do 2 120mm fans, and they'll fit as long as you use the included fan mounting screws to screw into the PSU shroud down there, like you see here on our build. And finally, on the rear, you can do a 120mm fan or AIO or radiator. Now that is great, Robey, but I'm an all air cooler now, and based on your last video about air cooling a 12900K, which you can check out right here, I saw the potential and I want to know what I can fit in here. Well, the cool thing is you can fit any air cooler up to 175mm in height. So that high-end air cooler like the Noctua NH-U12A that I air-cooled that 12900K with, or that behemoth Cooler Master Master Air A620M will fit in here nicely with absolutely room to spare. Now what will the temps be like? Well, let's dive in and see a build and show off some numbers. At the core of this, we got the Core i7-12700K. We're gonna be throwing this inside of the Z690 Aorus Elite AX DDR4. We are gonna be using a tried and true Trident Z G-Skill, 3600 32 gig, which means we get to use all 4 DIMMs. For a storage, and this is the Viper VP4300 from Patriot. So that's our storage solution. For cooling, this is their WaterForce X360. They have a 240 version of it. It's got a massive screen on it. For our power supply, this is the most overkill part, but it's got a screen on it. It's got a screen on it. For our GPU, and one of the things I love about this particular GPU and why I wanted to use it in this build is the EVGA RTX for the Win 3 3080 Ti. I'm going to be taking the 2 fans from the Flux system and actually plugging them directly into the GPU. And the expectation is that as the GPU starts to heat up, it'll speed up the fans at the bottom, therefore giving this additional air. But we're going to be using these Antec Prism 120, the pack of 3. We'll replace the exhaust fan, and then we'll be adding the 2 lower Flux fans. And then finally, you guys are used to this by now, we got some Asia Horse cable extensions just to continue to make things look good. Okay, so first up, let's put in our CPU. I wonder if these have not jumped. So have not been like the most jumpy CPU sockets. So will this jump? It jumped! Not very hard. That was like a semi-poor jump. First one for today. Oh, that was terrible. 88. Ooh, I do not think this is gonna be good. Here we go, ready? Last one. You ready? Click! There you go, that was better. There we go, everything's in. I didn't miss anything, I don't think. I could have missed something. I don't know what I'd missed, but it's possible. It's Robeytech. The beautiful DF800 FLUX. Oh, there we go. There's our front. I can see you guys. Can you see me? Hey, it looks like a stealth bomber. So anyway, we got that done. Case is done. This is the build's finished. Let's turn it on. Okay, here we go. We're gonna put in our, okay, you guys can't see it. Okay, I'm gonna put the camera a little bit more up. You guys ready? It's gotta be more up! There we go, that's better. Let us do the AIO. Ugh. Okay, so I think we're in a good spot right here. Okay, cool. There it is. Okay, here we go. Ready? I think it's already on. Did I guess right? Oh, I see lights there. I see lights there. Well, that's weird. Those all turned on. Those all turned on and then they turned off. Okay, maybe I gotta push. Oh, no, they're on. There it is. Wow, I got it all right. So what the flux was it like building inside of the DF800 FLUX? Come on, that's still not getting old. Okay, maybe a little bit. It was okay. Unlike the luxury air-cooled system that you get with this case, the rest of the build felt very, well, budget to be frank. No grommets, thin cable management space, and genuinely just kind of a budget feeling as you build. The little bit of extra depth on the left-hand side for cable management is nice, but it feels like some of the omissions were a little odd. I mean, the Corsair 4000D is $20 less, and sure, it only has 2 fans, but everything else feels way more premium than the Antec does. I guess I'm just surprised given it feels like this case should be more flagship-esque, and what we have is more paddle boat-esque. Not sure I ever would have compared like a flagship to a paddle boat on a video before, but I kind of like it. Now, to be clear, that doesn't mean the build experience is bad, and sure, you only do it maybe once or twice, but I was surprised at how budget it really felt. Like little things like how shallow the magnet is on the top of the case for the dust filter, and the way it makes basically the dust filter ripple because of the screw mounting for the AIO. One thing I've also noticed is that the GPU sag is a little bit more of an issue in this case, given how they're mounting the GPU, and specifically the screws, etc. Something I don't have an issue with the same card on the Corsair 4000D or 5000D, but I do notice on this case. You may need to consider, with a thicker card, a GPU support bracket, and not everybody is a fan of that. Last thing worth mentioning in the build experience is the holes for your front panel connections, etc. They aren't going to be big enough for you to route your GPU cables through, which is something I normally do. So just know you may need to route through the side cable holes instead, which ended up looking fine, but worth noting for something just a little bit different. Wow, Robey, that was a lot on the build experience, which I agree it was. But it's because maybe I was expecting something more premium in that regard than I actually got. Fine, Robey, you are so Gucci, but what the flux? About the flux, does it actually work? Oh, you mean the airflow flux stuff? Well, yeah, and that's a good segue. So let's talk about Both are 12700K cooled by our initially what was an Aorus Water Force, but now an NZXT Z73, which we're working with Gigabyte on the cooling, and the EVGA RTX 3080 Ti, where the Flux fans are directly controlled by the actual GPU. First up for CPU temps, which we expected from the NZXT Kraken and top mount in the AIO, these were absolutely smashing, darling. Sitting at 25 in the open case while at idle, and only a slightly warmer 27 in the closed case. Even when things get a little bit hot under the collar, and we really stretch the wings of the 12700K, we can see these things jumping to a nice and moderate 59 in the open case, and only a 4-degree jump to 63 in the closed case. These are fantastic temps. And that's without any undervolting, so zero issues on the CPU. Now for the main event. In this corner, we have the EVGA RTX 3080 Ti for the Win 3, poised to strike. And in the opposite side of the ring, we have the DF800 FLUX system to cool that GPU down. Now just hanging out in the ring while the GPU is sitting at idle, we see things at a moderate 41 in the open case scenario, and we actually saw the first swing from the FLUX system when it dropped to 37 in the closed case scenario. Round 1 goes to the FLUX. But when the GPU comes out swinging, Flux takes the blows with zero issue. Get it? Blows? Anyway, temps, Robey. Well, the GPU, under load, was sitting at 74 in the open case and an only slightly warmer 76 in the closed case scenario. Now, given how warm this GPU gets, 80s in most cases, that is awesome, and we can see that the fight actually goes to the Flux system on this one. So temps are absolutely great for both the CPU and GPU, even with this new front-end design from the DF800. Though, I am thinking having more airflow like in the DF700 for that front panel could even help temperatures get even lower. But let's move on and let's see how our 12700K and 3080 Ti actually do in gaming, shall we? So our 12700K paired with an EVGA RTX 3080 Ti did the following in games while cooled by the Flux and lapped in the luxury of airflow. First up, it's single player NVIDIA tuned experiences, aka games favoring NVIDIA GPUs. Cyberpunk 2077 at 1440p with DLSS set to performant, and all the highest presets, we are looking at 118.62 frames per second. That's some solid frames for some Night City action. For Tomb Raider, running at 1440p with DLSS on and the highest preset, we saw an average frame rate of 190 frames per second across the runs that we did in the game. So Tomb running? Check. For Metro Exodus, also running at 1440p, running with ray tracing on high and DLSS set to ultra performant, we saw an average FPS across our runs of 107.60 frames per second. Post-apocalyptic Moscow? Check. Now for some of those AMD single player experiences, again meaning these games favor AMD GPUs. First up, it's Dirt 5 running at 1440p with ultra high graphic settings. We saw an average frame rate of 148.7. Not gonna complain, those are some great frames for racing. Lastly, and rounding out the single player experiences, was Borderlands 3. Running the highest graphical preset, we saw an FPS average of 120.67. Great for Borderlands and just hitting that 120 mark, so some easy changes if you want to keep consistently above 120 frames per second. Now that is great for Borderlands and just hitting that right at 120 frame per second mark. So you can make some easy changes if you want to keep that consistently above 120 frames. So what about MP games then, Robey? Well, for Apex Legends, running on low visual settings at 1440p, optimized for competitive gameplay and high frames per second, we saw an average frame rate of 279.2 across all of our multiple game sessions. So if you wanted to use a 244Hz monitor, no problem. For Call of Duty Warzone, again on low visual settings at 1440p, optimized for competitive FPS gameplay and maximizing for frame rate, we saw an average frame rate of 278.2 FPS. Great Warzone numbers and obviously some optimization jumps here, so again, great for 244 plus Hertz refresh rate. Finally, for Fortnite, again at 1440p on low visual settings, set for competitive play, you are sitting at a still very nice and fluid 385.5 FPS, which honestly is pretty much good for any monitor with room to spare at all of the high refresh rates. So wrap it up, Robey. The case is actually really good in so many ways. The build experience is good, the airflow and cooling potential is fantastic, and the aesthetics are understated and different enough that it looks different from many of your boxier cases on the market. But it's the things where Antec looks to be cutting costs, like the 3-pin versus 4-pin hub, the shallow lacking cable management, and the lack of grommets that keep this from hitting the more premium cases that are in some ways less expensive than even this case. I mean, if you really like the Antec DF800 FLUX and you are really looking to get into this case, then I have no reason to tell you not to. See, even if you were just watching this video and you weren't considering it, but now you are, I would tell you to go forth and build young PC Jedi. I just hope with the DF900, given that there was a 6 and a 7 and an 8, it's fair to guess that there's gonna be a 9, then I hope they can add some of those premium bits that not only make this case look better, but allow for folks to have a much nicer and higher end build in the case. But it's not about what I think, it's about what you think. Like, what do you think about winning that awesome Aorus upgrade pack with the PSU, AIO, and motherboard I told you about at the beginning of the video? Or maybe even one of those 3 swag kits. Make sure you check for all of the info in the description below. Also, tell us your thoughts on that or the video and maybe win a little cash in the process. First and foremost, you need to leave a quality comment down below along with liking and subscribing to the channel. When I say quality comment, it doesn't need to be positive, it just needs to be something you liked or even didn't like about the video, what surprised you, etc. about the build, the case, or the video in general. It just can't be something like, I deserve to win, or can I has a free PC in the Antec DF800, or something similarly lame. You also need to ensure we have a way to reach you via your YouTube profile, like your email. So make sure you put your email in your YouTube profile so we can reach out to you to tell you that you won, because we won't tell you any other way. Now, we will be giving away $25 to one lucky comment down below that is worldwide, so anyone in the world can win it as long as they can accept PayPal or Venmo. Now, did you like this case? What did you like about the video, and was the review helpful? Do you think the cost savings done in the DF800 hurt the case? What did you think about the thermals? And are you interested in the case now? We'd love to know all that and more down in the comments below. Now, while you're down there, make sure you slap that subscribe button, whip that like button, and ring that notification bell so you get a notification each and every time we post a new video right here on Robeytech. Do you know that we have a live stream channel for builds and special events? Well, check out Robeytech Live down in the description below so you can like and subscribe to know when we go live, both here and also on Twitch. Do you have questions about this case or any other tech-related questions? Then check out our amazing Discord server filled with other tech and PC enthusiasts that love to share their thoughts and ideas on these very subjects. Are you looking for cheap tech? Maybe looking for this case's availability? Then check out @RobeytechDeals.com or @RobeytechDeals on Twitter, where we have our guy Tom scouring the internet for the best deals on all things from tech, PC components, video games, and even TVs. Finally, you can follow me and my entire team on all the other socials @Robeytech absolutely everywhere. We hope you enjoyed this video, and we super look forward to seeing you on the next one.